I see a lot of people move to Kelowna and say, I wish someone had told me this first. But the good news is, once you understand this upfront, the move usually makes a lot more sense. I work with people relocating to Kelowna every single week. Families, young professionals, retirees from Alberta, Ontario, the Lower Mainland, and all over. And although everyone's situation is different, there's usually a few common themes that come up and surprise people that can actually be really positive once you understand them early. So in this video, I want to walk you through some of the unexpected costs of moving here so there's no surprises, what actually changes when Kelowna goes from your vacation destination to your full-time home, and make sure you stick around to the end where I'm going to teach you how to make a move here in 2026 a little more strategically to save you a headache in the long run. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Kelowna isn't unusually complicated. It just might be a little different than where you're coming from. And once you understand the differences, buying here becomes a lot smoother of a process. A few things that I want to discuss that feel like they constantly come up when people are reaching out to me, whether it's coming in from my website or people reaching out to me from my YouTube videos, are the different types of land and property here. Now, again, it's not something that's completely different from the rest of Canada, but often I'll see people with a mixed bag of budget come here and they'll want to be in a single family home for $400,000, or they'll see a property online and think it's some amazing deal only to find out that it's bare land strata on leasehold land without really understanding the concept of any of that. So actually, let's dive into that really quickly right away. So there's two types of ownership here. There's freehold and there's leasehold land. Now, a lot of people hear leasehold and right away they get their backs up and say, I don't want to deal with that at all, which fair enough, you might not want to, and financially you might not be able to. Some leasehold properties can be very difficult to get financing for, and at times can only be purchased through a cash deal. But let me explain this. Leasehold in Kelowna, especially the West Bank, West Kelowna area, is pretty common. There's generally two types of leaseholds here. West Bank First Nations leasehold. This is obviously land that is owned by the West Bank First Nations. You'll see this commonly in West Kelowna in the Lakeview Heights area, some in West Kelowna estates, especially the West Bank Center area. And it can be anything from a mix of single family homes, townhouses, the manufactured home parks. And if you're a young family or young couple looking to get into the housing market and your budget is a little tight, this might be a fantastic option for you, especially when I'm thinking of the single family homes in the Lakeview Heights areas. Generally, leasehold comes at more of an affordable price, often with the $150,000 to $200,000 price difference. And that's mainly because you are essentially buying the property, you own the property, but the land is going to be leased from the West Bank First Nation. And this isn't some handshake deal where at any point they can knock on your door and take back the land. There's a very thorough and defined legal process where lease documents are signed with the lawyer, and now we're starting to see these new modernized leases that are really great for 100 to 125 years that are never going to affect you and your ownership, but because of some of the more complexities of the deal and the fact that you actually only own the physical property, they come at a much more affordable price. Now, the other type of leasehold we see here is private leasehold. And this is where I see a lot of people come to our website, or when they're relocating here, they ask me about certain areas like, whoa, this seems like such a good deal. I want to buy this house. And one of the most common areas I see people kind of get really excited about before they actually understand the whole scenario is the Tower Ranch area. Now, the Tower Ranch area is in North Rutland. It's an extremely beautiful area surrounding the Tower Ranch golf course. And now there are a mix of freehold and private leasehold properties there. The biggest difference is the leasehold properties come at a way more attractive price. Beautiful brand new single family homes in the $700,000 to $750,000 range. There's a mix of single family homes, townhouses, bare land strata. But one of the problems and one of the reasons why these prices are so attractive is because they are private leasehold. And unlike West Bank First Nations leaseholds where, you know, there might be a $1,200, $1,500 fee every year for the lease, these private leaseholds like Tower Ranch come with a pretty high lease payment. So if you're in a bare land strata around the Tower Ranch that's private leasehold, you're going to be paying an amenities fee, a strata fee, a leasehold fee that is usually $700 to $800, and then on top of that, you're going to be having to pay your mortgage. This to me totally eliminates these types of properties from any of my clients, because no one in their right mind is really going to be paying their mortgage payment. You know, you're paying a $2,500, $3,000 mortgage payment, and then essentially paying another $1,000 on top of that for strata, amenities, and a leasehold fee. Now, the nice thing about some of these private leaseholds, not Tower Ranch, is you can actually pay the lease out. So you'll see certain areas like the Sandstone, a 55 plus community in Kelowna, where some of the properties selling there are leasehold and some are freehold. And that is because some of these private leaseholds you can actually pay out and have freehold ownership of them. But that's not always the case, which again can cause a lot of confusion. And it's another reason to contact a local expert like myself who has experience dealing with these types of situations to help guide you through the process. Now, another thing I see when people reach out to me and they have a budget in mind, say their budget is $900,000, $800,000. Let's stick with $800,000 as kind of around the average price for all product here in Kelowna. They have a purchase price, they have a max of what they can afford, but they don't account for certain things. Of course, they have their purchase price of $800,000. Likely that comes with a down payment, but they're not accounting for things like GST or property transfer tax or how strata fees are going to affect their financing capabilities. These are all things you need to know prior to coming here. You don't want to come to Kelowna or move to the Okanagan with the expectation of, I'm going to get into a single family home for $800,000, only to find out after getting some market education from a local expert that you're more likely going to be in a high-end townhouse range at that price. Then with being in the high-end townhouse range, you learn that with strata fees, sometimes $400 to $500 a month, that significantly lowers your financing capabilities and what you can actually afford in that type of product. So again, connecting with someone like myself, having a conversation and actually going through one of our buyer's consultations where we sit you down and provide you with some market education. This isn't a sales pitch. This is to prevent you headaches along the way. I've had to unfortunately damper a lot of people's dreams when they're coming here because they do all this planning and get excited about moving here without really taking into account some of the realities of purchasing in the Okanagan or BC, or they're just inexperienced with the process and they didn't understand these variables from the beginning. But if you're watching this, you're already starting to get ahead of the curve and providing yourself with the education you're going to need moving forward. Another quick thing I want to talk about before we move on to the next section is the property transfer tax and GST. I have people who have some higher budgets of $1.5 million plus, but they still have a max and they still have a ceiling, but they're coming here, they're buying a single family home and they want to get into some new construction, which is fantastic. It's a great option. Now, there's certain ways you can avoid property transfer tax. You can avoid even GST in some situations, depending on price, depending if you're a first-time home buyer. Again, a lot of variables. Each deal is unique and it's important to have someone that has experience going through them to help guide you through this process. But for instance, say you have a max budget of 1.5 and you're looking at something that's close to the end of that budget. You're in 1.45 and it's a new construction home and you're thinking, this is incredible. I can't believe I can afford something like this. You also have to account for the property transfer tax, which a lot of times is avoidable on new construction, but only up to a certain threshold, which in BC currently is 1.1 million with a partial exemption up to 1.15 million. So you're going to be paying GST and property transfer tax. So although you're financially capable of affording up to $1.5 million, when you have to pay property transfer tax, which is 1% on the first $200,000, 2% on the remainder up to $3 million, and 3% after that, plus GST, which is 5% on the purchase price, you're gonna be looking at over $100,000 in just taxes alone. And that still doesn't cover things like your legal fees, home inspection, insurance. So again, getting ahead of this, understanding how many variables can factor in and affect your buying capabilities is so crucial, especially when you're moving to Kelowna in the Okanagan. I don't know how it works everywhere else. I don't know how different this is from Ontario, how different it is from Alberta, but I know how it works here. Again, none of this is bad. It just means that buying here is rewarded by preparation. And once buyers understand these pieces, they usually feel a whole lot more confident. And this is usually where things start to feel a lot more clear, because once the numbers make sense, then the lifestyle becomes the real focus. And if you want help figuring out this next part and want to actually set up a strategic plan, my contact information is on the screen right now and linked in the description down below. Call me, text me, email me at any time, or to save yourself a whole lot of headache, book yourself a free relocation consultation via the link in the description down below. Now let's move on to the next part. So this is where it really becomes clear that visiting and vacationing in Kelowna is a lot different from living in Kelowna full time. And in many ways, it's way better. You come here on vacation, like you go on vacation anywhere, like you're going to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. It's fantastic. You think this is amazing. I can just kick my feet up and relax. I have food served to me. I'm going out, I'm partying, I'm having some drinks, I'm visiting all these cool places, which you can do as a full-time local here. But you also have to account for some of the negatives that come with living in Kelowna in the Okanagan. And also just understand that this vacation lifestyle that you're living right now, right in the moment, isn't going to be your forever state of mind. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe you're a billionaire here and this is actually your reality. That's fantastic. Make sure you call me. I love people with boats. But for the majority of us, we are eventually going to settle into this day-to-day relaxed, either it's work, family, more casual lifestyle. So one of the things I always encourage people to consider is you're no longer the tourist anymore, you're the local. And some of the pain points I hear from locals, which again, people like to complain in general, I don't find most of these things a big deal. And I actually like the fact that we're a tourism destination because it brings this level of energy and liveliness to our city. But you have to expect when the summer comes, tourist season begins, and the traffic is going to increase. The infrastructure here in Kelowna, especially with the Bennett Bridge that connects West Kelowna and Kelowna, is definitely not equipped to handle the summer influx of tourism. Our highway runs directly through the city, so congestion is a real thing. Your local restaurants that are maybe a little sleepier in the off seasons become jam-packed and you have to book 3 weeks out just to get in anywhere. But because of the tourism, we have a lot more money and funding coming into this area. So it affords us things like incredible restaurants, like some beautiful, amazing wineries, some incredible events that happen throughout the year. And the more money tourism brings in, the more it helps us grow our city. Also, when you're here on vacation and you budgeted for a vacation, you're spending money wildly maybe, take a second to consider that these aren't really inflated prices for when you're here, like when you're going to an all-inclusive resort and everything's kind of really expensive. These are the prices of Kelowna. We do have a slightly higher cost of living. I think it's pretty on par and on average to places like the GTA or even more affordable than the Lower Mainland or the island. But gas is a little more expensive here. Going out to eat is pretty costly. One thing I will say is property taxes, depending on where you're coming from, can be a lot more affordable. I've learned that from people that have been relocating from the GTA Ontario area and even the East Coast. When they come and ask me the property taxes on expensive homes, for instance, I always kind of cringe when I tell them like, oh yeah, this one's like $8,000, and they laugh because $8,000 is for like a condo in downtown Toronto. I might be exaggerating a bit there, but they are much more affordable than out east. I know that for sure. So yes, there are busy seasons here. You have to be prepared for that, but you also gain access to everything that the locals enjoy year round. You start to learn the really cool hikes that only locals know about, local beaches that are kind of away from the hustle and bustle, really cool dog parks, access to nature and the outdoors, the areas that you probably wouldn't find out from just visiting here. And once you become a local, the city opens up in a different way. And the one thing people don't always expect when you move here is you have to get involved. In Kelowna, and I think this is pretty true for most places, maybe aside from the prairies, when I feel like there is a really tight sense of community, especially because right now, my folks back out east are dealing with -45 weather, because when you live in a place with such harsh climates, you kind of have to band together, but people aren't exactly knocking down your doors to be friends. I know people who move here and they struggle to meet people and make friends, but they don't put themselves out there. We have a ton of clubs, groups, leagues, gyms, outdoor communities, and events year round. It is a very welcoming culture once you come into it. And I think a lot of that is because there's so many people and there's such a large community of people who actually relocate here, that over the last 10 years, those types of things really increased. Because I feel like more than a decade ago, when Kelowna wasn't one of the fastest growing cities, there wasn't that huge influx of people coming here needing to create their own sense of community, where now I really feel like there is, and it's much easier. But again, it doesn't work if you don't put yourself out there. And once you understand how lifestyle fits together here, where you choose to live becomes even more important. Which brings us to our next section, moving here strategically, especially in 2026. The best move happens when lifestyle and location are aligned before you move here. Now, there are gonna be situations when moving here and renting for a while before you buy makes sense. I totally get that. If you have no ability to come out here and do an exploratory tour, you haven't connected with the local expert like myself, and you just don't know or understand Kelowna whatsoever, you don't know which areas are gonna fit your lifestyle and you don't know which areas are really not gonna fit your lifestyle, I totally understand. You need to come and test the market out. But if you can do enough research up front and do enough planning, I always think if you're able to get into the market, it's better to do it when you can, when it makes sense. For instance, right now, we're in a buyer's market. Anyone relocating here, again, depends what specific market you're coming from, is going to be in a pretty good situation. Our market's a bit softer here. The list to sell ratio is down a bit. We have a good amount of inventory, which is going to boom even further in the spring. And it's so difficult to time the market. So you could come here and be like, oh, I'm going to rent for a year, decide where I'm going to live, and then get into the market. I don't think this will happen, but we could at that point move from a buyer's market to a balanced market. Likely not, but I can't always predict these things. You could be in a seller's market by the time your lease up and you're ready to buy. Again, this isn't a pressure sales tactic. I just always believe that if you have the ability to get into the market, you find the right place that works for you. There's no better time than now, because I've had some people, whether it's buyers or seller, try to time out the market perfectly, and it's really tough to make it pan out. Because I work in this field every day. I'm looking at the stats, I'm seeing the sales, and I still don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. You know, I have my predictions, but anyone who feels like they have a crystal ball or they can forecast what the market's going to do in the next 2 to 3 years, I don't even think the most talented economist is going to nail that 100% of the time. So you have to do what makes sense for you, but doing your research early and often is going to give you the best chance for success. Again, that comes from things like connecting with a local expert like myself, sitting down, having a relocation consultation about what your plans are, what your lifestyle is, what's your needs versus wants, understanding the market and being provided market education, understanding how the buying process works here opposed to where you might be coming from. One of the best things, and I see a lot of people do, is plan out exploratory trips here. Now, it's not always feasible with work and families, but being able to come out here even for a few days and getting connected so we can actually go out there and explore Kelowna, explore the Okanagan, wherever you're looking at, and start to understand the different areas, the prices, what kind of lifestyle they fit, the feel of them, because that's incredibly important. You know, you can look at a house and think the house is perfect, but then get into the neighborhood and be like, I don't know, the energy is off here. This seems a little funky. I don't care if this place is free. I don't want to live here. And you don't know that until you come here and actually check it out for yourself. So I think an exploratory trip is a fantastic way to learn more about the area. Come with me on an educational tour and really understand what Kelowna is about. And once you understand that, it's all about matching lifestyle to location. Are you a retiree? Are you a remote worker? Do you have a young family and need to be by schools? Do you want to be more central? Do you want a more quiet rural area? Do you need an income suite? What are the more affordable areas? What are the more luxury waterfront areas? I have answers to all of these questions. I can set you up and point you in the directions of what areas are going to make most sense for you, because not every area is a one size fits all. Usually every area, every neighborhood, every town is a blend of many of these things. But narrowing that down so you're not overwhelmed with the entirety of Kelowna, the entirety of the Okanagan, is going to dramatically improve your moving experience. So when buyers do their homework up front, they often land in the right home faster and with less stress. And this is where having local guidance makes the biggest difference. So if you're planning on moving to Kelowna in 2026 and you want help connecting the dots, whether it's budget, lifestyle, neighborhoods, that's exactly what I help people out with every day. I've made it really easy for you too. You can call me, text me, email me at the information on the screen right now, or linked in the description down below, or make it even easier. Book a free relocation consultation via the link in the description down below, and I'm more than happy to help you out anytime. And if you're trying to do more research right now while you're watching this video and figure out which neighborhoods actually fit your lifestyle in Kelowna the best, you gotta watch this video. It's the #1 video tour of all of Kelowna, breaking down each neighborhood. I put a lot of work into to help people specifically like you who are relocating here. Again, my name is Brett Paholi, your Okanagan realtor and relocation specialist. This is my channel, Living in Kelowna BC, and I will catch you in the next video.